Hey guys and gals, welcome back to another episode of The Creator Speaks. Now you may remember back in April, I did a video about Disney Channel's upcoming original movie, Descendants. And in that video, I took a look at the various promotional pictures and information from interviews that had come out at the time, and basically came to the conclusion that I was cautiously optimistic about the project. Were there some things that I was worried about? Yeah. But on the most part, I thought it had the makings to be a great Disney Channel original movie. Well, I recently was able to watch Descendants, and, well, let's just get into it, shall we? First, let's start talking about the villains, who I think a lot of viewers are tuning in to see. We have Maleficent, Jafar, the Evil Queen, and Cruella de Vil. Now, Kristen Chenoweth, who played Maleficent, if you recall in my previous video, I thought was the wrong casting. I just didn't see her fit for the role. However, I must admit, she wasn't nearly as bad as I had originally thought. Now, she's far from perfect, mind you, but for this movie, and for the tone that this movie was going for, she was most certainly a highlight. I don't have much to say in regards to the other villains, though, and that's really because they don't have much to do or stuff to say. Cruella and the Evil Queen are decent acting-wise. They're not bad, but definitely not terrible either. Jafar, on the other hand, is probably the worst, as the actor didn't really have the voice for the part. He sounded more like an impersonation of Apu from The Simpsons, more than he sounded like Jafar.
Well, Jay isn't going either. I need him to stock the shelves in my store.
Well, I don't like to leave the store, but...
To me, it just wasn't the right casting. Now for the villain's children. I was actually, again, very pleasantly surprised. All of the actors do a great job with their characters. The best acting here was done by Dove Cameron from Liv and Maddie, who had played Maleficent's daughter, Mal. She was great during the first two acts before she switches sides, but I'll get into that a little bit later. Now, Cruella's son's actor, Cameron Boyce from Jessie, wasn't bad, but he just felt like he was phoning it in. Some scenes really did feel like he was just playing his character from Jessie instead of playing his character from Descendants, Carlos. Now let's move on to talking about the good guys, and this category is going to be very brief, because in terms of the adult good guys, like people from the Disney movies, there's really only three: Belle, Beast, and the Fairy Godmother. Belle and the Beast aren't really in it that much. They're in it for the first 5 minutes, where their son tells them that he wants to give the daughters and sons of these four villains a chance to reform, in a way, and then they disappear until roughly around the third act near the coronation ceremony. But they're not bad. Now, for the Fairy Godmother, she took a while to get used to, but she wasn't bad. She did sort of grow on you as the movie went on. Now, for their children, they sort of do fall into typical high school tropes. However, there is one thing that I think this movie has over other ones, and that is the reason why the high school kids are sort of angry at the newcomers. Usually it's because they're new, but in this movie it makes sense because in Auradon, most of the students there are related to the Disney heroes. And these four kids coming in, the new kids, are the sons and daughters of the Disney villains. Villains who have tried to probably kill their parents. So they sort of have a reason to be, sort of neglectful and angry at these new kids. Moving away from the characters and the actors, let's talk about the story, because there are some problems that I do have with it. The first major problem I think this movie has in terms of its story, and that is our ability to buy that these villains had kids, but it's never explained how they had kids. In Auradon, the sons and daughters of the heroes make sense, because most, if not all of them, are couples, whether it be Snow White and her parents, Aladdin, Jasmine, again, etc. But in the villains' Land of the Lost, it's never explained if Jafar had a wife, or if Maleficent had a husband, or who Cruella de Vil married, or who the Evil Queen married. In fact, there even is a line in the movie about when the Evil Queen is talking to her daughter about going possibly to Auradon. She's like,
You just find yourself a prince with a big castle and a mother-in-law wing. And lots of mirrors.
So they're sort of acknowledging the fact that these villains are not married. So I do sort of wonder if they'll ever explain how these villains had kids. But perhaps the biggest oversight in this movie, for me, is in the final act, where spoilers if you don't want to get it spoiled for you. It's at the coronation ceremony, and Mal is deciding, does she take the wand or does she not take the wand? And we actually do see somebody grab the wand, but it's actually revealed to be the fairy godmother's daughter, because she wants to make herself beautiful. And I guess by just holding the wand, she opens up the land of the lost for the villains to escape. Or rather, villain. Maleficent. Yeah, Maleficent's the only villain who actually leaves. And it's not like it's the land of the lost is immediately closed up after she leaves. No. The other villains just don't come, and I do think that was kind of an oversight. We see Jay fighting Maleficent, but I don't think that's as strong. I think it would have been stronger if Jay fought Jafar and Maleficent fought her daughter. I just think that would have been a much better climax. In fact, we don't even see the other villains after Maleficent leaves, except for one 5-second scene during the final song where the fireworks are going off, and we turn back to the land of the lost to reveal the evil Queen Jafar and Cruella de Vil are looking out their window to look at the fireworks. It's never explained if they are proud of their kids, if they hate their kids, if they're angry at them. It's never explained. And that's, I think, the biggest problem with this movie as a whole. It has a lot of good things going for it, but it just doesn't explain much. So, the story has some problems, but again, the plot as a whole, I did actually think was a really good idea, and most of it was executed very well. Now let's move on to talk about the music very briefly. And while it was initially billed as a musical, Descendants doesn't actually feature that much music. However, the music little there is was, as previously predicted in my other video, extremely unnecessary. There was only one song number that I actually felt was integral to the plot and to the characters, and it was the song with Maleficent and her daughter in the Gallery of Villains. I think it was called Evil Like Me. It started to show in that song that Mal wants to do right by her mother, which is a major plot point later on in the film. All of the other music's basically there to show that the actors can sing. Now, one final thing before we get into the verdict here that I want to talk about, and that is the costumes for the villains. Because in my first impressions video, when I took a look at the promo pictures, I said that the costumes for the villains looked really well done. Because they looked like modern versions of their original outfits, but still using the original outfits as a basis, as a blueprint. Unfortunately, those costumes were for the Gallery of Villains, because those are that's the only place in this movie where those costumes show up. The costumes that we see the villains in the beginning of the movie is actually completely different. Jafar's costume I don't think was very well done. Cruella's was okay, but Cruella's not that hard to make a costume for. Maleficent's was okay, and the Evil Queen's I'd actually think was the worst. Mainly because her black sort of head collar, if you know the Evil Queen's design, you know what I'm talking about, was really, really long in that pointed portion. It really looked like she was wearing a neck brace. That was sort of a downgrade from what I had thought the villains would be wearing. So overall, what's the verdict on Descendants? Well, while the first two halves are entertaining, the third act does sort of delve into what you would expect to happen, again, besides for who actually gets the wand. However, I do still feel that the first two halves are entertaining enough to warrant a viewing, especially if you're a fan of Disney, or really the Disney villains. However, if you don't like shows like ABC's Once Upon a Time, where it takes the characters and sort of does a new spin on them, I don't really think you'll enjoy this. So, in terms of the star rating, I'm actually going to give it 3.5. It's not a great Disney Channel original movie, but it is better than some of the ones they have been pumping out lately. So yeah, guys, that was my review on Disney Channel's Descendants. If you've seen Descendants, leave a comment below, let me know what you thought of it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, it really helps me out and knows if you guys want to see the content come out. And yeah, until next time, guys, I'll be seeing you.